Hello, my name is Tao, and this is a video presentation about organizational change. This video is part of a graduate research project for a graduate class with Amberton University. Part of the assignment was to choose a company and review it and analyze it in terms of organizational change. The company I chose was Netflix. Netflix has been around, 15, 20 years now, and everyone knows who Netflix is and what they do. What a lot of people don't know is the unique history that Netflix has, and they've already undergone several iterations of change, which made a very interesting case study when viewed through the lens of organizational change. So what follows is roughly 20 to 25 minutes discussing the history of Netflix, the changes that they've already made and implemented, and the future of Netflix and what type of organizational change they may need or want to implement in the future. Okay, let's get started here. The graduate research project requires students to select a company and analyze it through the lens of organizational change. Again, the company I've chosen is Netflix. Netflix has dominated the streaming media space for most of the last decade. Streaming video content is an industry Netflix basically created, and its dominance has and continues to drastically affect all aspects of entertainment. Over the company's 20-year life, Netflix has embraced change, implementing two major organizational changes since its founding back in 1997. Today, Netflix faces steep competition as a plethora of companies look to enter the streaming entertainment space. In what's been dubbed the streaming wars, Netflix faces improving competition like Hulu, HBO Now, Amazon Prime, and YouTube, as well as new competitors like Disney+, Apple+, NBC, and CBS. This intense competition isn't just for subscribers, it's also for content. As the streaming market becomes saturated with providers, Netflix will need to pivot once again to bring new and added value to its product offering and to maintain its dominance in entertainment and technology. Alright, let's go through a brief history of Netflix. While Netflix is nearly synonymous with streaming video content today, that was not always the case. When Netflix was founded in 1997, it focused on DVD rentals of movies and television shows, featuring a ship-to-home service. These DVD rentals were originally offered on a one-off basis, and later in 1998, the company added a subscription service, allowing customers unlimited DVD rentals at a set monthly rate. The company continued to grow its customer base, and in 2002, Netflix went public, with its initial public offering resulting with share prices of $15 per share. Over the next few years, the company cycled through a handful of highs and lows as they worked to improve their services and increase the number of subscribers. The first major change and success for Netflix came in 2007 when it introduced streaming video. This wasn't only a change for the company, but was a watershed moment for the entertainment industry in general, giving consumers something they've never had before, the ability to watch content instantly on a variety of devices and in a variety of places. It also changed how people watch content, allowing consumers to view content on their schedules and without commercial interruptions. From 2009 and on, Netflix's prices soared, being valued at over $700 per share in 2015. However, with such amazing success, other companies also look to enter the streaming market. Initial competition from companies like Hulu, Amazon, and HBO presented two major threats to Netflix's business. First, as more competitors enter the market, Netflix would have to invest more resources into keeping existing customers and in obtaining new ones. And second, part of the genius of Netflix was the fact that they were using content owned by other companies, and they were using that content against the networks and studios they were competing with. At the time, Netflix was not a movie or television studio, and they licensed the use of other companies' content and acted more or less as a content delivery system. Netflix is facing incredible external pressure to adapt and grow. Netflix once held a near monopoly on the market as the only major streaming content provider and held multiple exclusive content licenses. However, Netflix is now facing significant competition in every area that it once held a supreme advantage. Netflix's key attributes of company culture. While it's easy to see the difficult road ahead for Netflix, one thing that cannot be overlooked is Netflix's unique company culture, which helped propel it to the success it is today. Netflix's culture has three key factors. First, extreme openness and what they call radical transparency. Second, constant, unrelenting, and honest feedback. And third, an upper-out structure of high performance and high-pressure job evaluations. Okay, let's dive a little deeper into these three key aspects of culture for Netflix. Extreme openness. Netflix has a philosophy of what they call radical transparency that permeates every part of the organization. Employees are encouraged to talk about mistakes they have made, all in the name of transparency. In addition, employee salaries are fairly public, with all employees at the director level or higher having access to the salaries of all employees below them. When it comes to constant feedback, employee evaluations is another area where Netflix practices extreme openness. Instead of a single annual review, Netflix managers are encouraged to give continuous, honest, and sometimes blunt feedback to their employees. The constant feedback is embedded into each of Netflix's business processes. Netflix's employees are evaluated on everything, with employees reporting that they receive feedback on their technical skills, presentation skills, client interactions, and even their style of dress on a weekly basis. Moreover, being publicly reprimanded is also fairly common when performance is less than expected. In addition, employee evaluations are accessible by anyone in the company, from the lowest level administrators to the CEO. Collectively, Netflix calls this constant and penetrating feedback structure their 360 tool. Another aspect of this culture is high pressure and high performance. Netflix's extreme openness and unrelenting performance evaluating has resulted with a high-pressure, high-performance culture. For example, Netflix employs a keeper test, where managers who are assessing their employees' performance are asked to answer the question, "Would you fight to keep this employee?" This openness around evaluations and performance have caused some employees to argue that this quote-unquote openness is really a cover to allow office politics to play out. Managers at Netflix have also voiced concerns about feeling undue pressure to fire people to avoid looking soft. In addition, promotions are decided by committee, and if an employee isn't keeping up with the expected pace of promotion, they are let go. Netflix refers to this process of performance or firing up or out, and it leaves no room for employees to perform at a comfortable pace. Top talent. While this culture may seem a little extreme to some, collectively, Netflix's culture is all about unabashed honesty and high performance. This type of culture generally attracts talented employees with high ambition. Netflix's leaders are not concerned with the workplace comfort, and its culture has helped Netflix stay nimble and adaptable, which has allowed it to transition from being just a content provider to a content provider and content creator. However, as Netflix faces a changing landscape with ever-increasing competition, it's reasonable to ask whether Netflix's culture will ultimately help or hurt its efforts to maintain industry dominance. Netflix faces two challenges. The first challenge arises from the external environment. Netflix once had a near monopoly in streaming content, but now it is fighting for customers, content licenses, and content creation. Competition is not only fierce, it's multiple, with various companies offering a diverse product offering within the streaming content space. The second challenge is Netflix's culture, and whether its historical open, high-pressure, high-performance culture is the right culture to implement the changes it needs to continue to succeed in the ever-changing streaming landscape. Open System Framework. Okay, with that as the backdrop, let's dive into some of the theories and how they may affect Netflix in the future. The more planned an organization change is, the higher its likelihood of success. However, a successful organizational change plan should not be strictly linear. Change steps, especially in larger organizations like Netflix, may be better thought of as occurring in overlapping stages, with an underlying tenet of adaptability to address unexpected events and results. The identification of the need for planning and flexibility in the context of organizational change was a result of research in open system theory. In general, open system theory posits that all human organizations are best understood as an open system, where an organization's function, performance, success, and potential death all revolve around the interactions between itself and the external environment. Moreover, open system theory provides that organizations should be thought of as a system where changes to one part of the organization will impact all other parts. As such, successful organization change should attempt to forecast how each change will interact with other parts of the organization or quote-unquote system. Netflix operates in an open system. Research has shown that organizations do not operate within a vacuum, where the external environment does not affect the organization or its internal activities. Instead, Organizations not only interact with the external environment, they depend on the external environment for survival. Now, it is possible that certain niche companies may operate in a market where interactions with the external environment are minimal or of less consequence. In those circumstances, an open system framework may be less applicable. However, Netflix is not such a company. To the contrary, Netflix's business, and especially its challenges, are a direct result of interactions with the external environment. Netflix must be keenly aware of the consumer, competition, overall streaming marketplace, the human capital market, and the labor force's level of acceptance of its culture practices to address the challenges it's facing. Open Systems Framework provides two key areas of focus that align with Netflix's need for organization change. First, the concept of the external environment being key for an organization's survival is absolutely true for Netflix. At its core, Netflix is a service company that has over 150 million external customers. To provide those services, Netflix interacts with hundreds of external vendors, suppliers, studios, and networks. Second, Netflix has approximately 7,100 full-time employees, which is a relatively lean employee base for a company with so many customers. Any change to its services, labor force, and/or culture would have drastic effects on Netflix's entire organization. Open Systems Framework of systemic change is one that Netflix would need to follow to implement a successful organizational change. Hubris could bring Netflix down. Generally speaking, Netflix has been a very adaptive and disruptive company. Netflix is keenly aware of the environmental pressures it's facing, and given its open and high-performance culture, there's no reason to believe that Netflix will not change in response to the environmental pressures. However, one thing could cause Netflix to look the other way when the need for change is staring them right in the face, and that is hubris. It's no secret that Netflix has been incredibly successful, pioneering the mail-to-order DVD market and then creating and dominating the streaming content industry. Such success does leave organizations especially vulnerable to the "we've always done things this way" mantra. It's one thing to say you've always done something a certain way when you've had limited success, but that mindset becomes much more powerful when the success is as big as Netflix's. Well, it doesn't seem that Netflix is falling prey to this potential issue. A Netflix executive recently said that they are not concerned with the quote-unquote streaming wars, and that fact could indicate potential short-sightedness and could lead for trouble for Netflix in the future. The future of Netflix. The most immediate challenge Netflix is facing is competition from the external environment. The addition of new competitors into streaming represents a greater threat than simply new providers to lure subscribers away. Competition means competition for employees with experience in streaming. It also means more competition for vendor and supplier relationships, as well as tougher negotiations with content providers. It also presents the risk of downward pricing pressure, as other providers look to undercut market rates to obtain customers. Netflix's first response to this influx of competition has been to produce its own original content. Without question, this represented an organization-wide change as Netflix transformed from being just a technology and service company into a technology and service company, as well as a movie and television studio. Netflix has continued its content creation strategy, and despite its large capital requirements, this strategy seems to be working for the company. Predicting the next successful move for Netflix would be difficult. No matter what the next move is, it's undoubtedly going to involve massive change across the organization. Whether it's investing more capital and resources into its content production division, adding advertisements, or monetizing the huge amounts of data it has on its customers, or something completely new, the change will be system-wide. With that said, as it relates to Netflix's culture, it's unlikely Netflix will implement any major culture changes, unless the external labor market demands it. There are certain high-performing workers who are willing to accept Netflix's open and high-pressure work environment. While it's certainly not for everyone, Netflix has created an adaptable, fast-paced, successful, and highly productive labor force, which it will need to maintain to confront the ever-increasing competition. Resistance. Resistance to change is an inevitable part of organization change, especially when the change is large in scale and involves a large company like Netflix. Research has shown that there are several common types of resistance that can arise in response to a large-scale change. First, where revolutionary change, at its best, becomes an evolutionary change. This occurs when the existing culture norms are too strong, and an attempted revolutionary change is reduced to an incremental evolutionary change. Number 2, where there is an insufficient sense of urgency. Here, employees harbor a disbelief and skepticism about the need of change, which undermines the sense of urgency, and not enough organization members are engaged enough to implement the change. And third, where diversionary tactics are employed, and for a variety of reasons, certain organization members, often those who believe the organization change will not benefit them individually, actively look for ways to undermine the planned change. As Netflix continues to grow and change over the near term, its open and performance-based culture should combat any resistance to change. Moreover, the quick and often public firings combined with its 360 tool should, in theory, help remove resistant employees from the company, as well as promote those employees who champion the change. A culture immune to resistance. Netflix has an aggressive company culture which features quick and sometimes public firings, extreme openness, active feedback loops, and employee evaluations that occur often and are publicized throughout the company. While this type of culture has many drawbacks, one of its benefits is its ability to address resistance to change. Any employee and/or business unit who disagrees with an organization change should feel empowered to voice their resistance. In theory, the company's policy to encourage openness should help ensure all concerns are heard. However, from the organization's perspective, the openness would also allow Netflix to identify those employees resisting change and let them go as they saw fit. While obviously bad for the employee, this culture would result in having most resistance being removed quickly. Netflix's vision for the future. Netflix does not have a published vision statement. However, Netflix's CEO, Reed Hastings, has expressed a clear vision for Netflix's future, indicating that Netflix aims to 1. Become the best global entertainment distribution service, 2. License entertainment content around the world, 3. Create markets that are accessible to filmmakers, and 4. Help content creators around the world find a global audience. In addition, Netflix has published its company's core values, which are 1. Judgment, 2. Productivity, 3. Creativity, 4. Intelligence, 5. Honesty, 6. Communication, 7. Selflessness, 8. Reliability, and 9. Passion. Taken together, Netflix's vision for the future seems to focus on 3 key things. The first, expanding globally, penetrating markets that other streaming service providers cannot or will not enter. 2, continue to produce content. And 3, continue to refine their current services to be the best in the industry. At this time, I would not change Netflix's vision statement. With that said, I think their focus on content creation is a tenuous proposition. Netflix is very new to content creation, and while they've had some success thus far, they are now competing with broadcast companies like NBC and CBS, as well as movie studio behemoths like Disney, who undoubtedly have more experience and expertise in content creation. In the near term, penetrating new markets should allow Netflix to sustain their growth, and the focus on the product improvement indicates that Netflix will, at the very least, have appreciation for the need of evolutionary change. Netflix should also consider adding the ideas of disruption and invention to their vision and culture focus. Netflix basically invented the streaming market, which disrupted the entire entertainment industry. Being the first to the space allowed them to take advantage of a blue ocean opportunity. That is, Netflix was able to sell its products and services with little to no real competition. Now, it seems Netflix is content with trying to be the best in streaming. The influx of competition almost ensures that this strategy will have diminishing returns, and Netflix will be better served to focus on creating another new market within the entertainment sector. Communication and Kotter's 8 stages of organizational change. John Kotter's seminal work in organizational change provides persuasive evidence of the best methods to successfully communicate organizational change. Within his 8-stage process, he describes the importance of, and the methods for, successfully communicating an organization change. Communication is key for the success of any organization change, and change leaders often underestimate the amount of communication required to develop a consistent understanding of the what, why, when, who, and how of change. To implement change at Netflix, the open nature of the company would require communication of the in-depth details of the change. Given the increased turnover, communications regarding the change would need to be reiterated and reemphasized often to ensure the organization change is understood by all employees of the company. Netflix's 360 tool of evaluations and feedback should also be used to communicate the organization change, with each evaluation being framed in reference to the organization change. Communicating the organization change should be top-down, with leadership discussing it each and every time they address managers and the company at large. Given Netflix's reported open culture, the organization change should be expected to permeate all parts of the company. A comprehensive plan for communication. Netflix is a relatively interdependent organization with established avenues for strong and clear communication. As such, the method of delivery of the message of organization change should be less of a concern when compared to the importance of the content of the message. A communication plan for organization change at Netflix should, at the very least, include 1. Monthly email updates, 2. Monthly in-person or videocast updates, 3. Comprehensive quarterly in-person or video updates from management and the change leaders, 4. Evaluations that include comments on the organization change and what's expected of an employee in the context of organization change, 5. Employee feedback surveys regarding the organization change and its ongoing process, and 6. The creation of an organization change communication manager who would have the dual responsibility of ensuring the foregoing things are successfully implemented and interfacing with leaders at all levels of the company to discuss the organization change and its progress. Clarity, conciseness, persistence, and perseverance. Organization change communication requires certain skills and traits of the organization's change leaders for the organization change to be successful. Research on communication and organization change shows that it's impossible to over-communicate organization change. Therefore, change leaders must be persistent in their messaging and persevere when the organization change enters its middle and later stages of implementation. Moreover, for communications to be successfully received, the change leaders must possess certain skills in speaking and writing with clarity and conciseness. An ongoing communication process, like that applies to an organization change, does not need fluff or flowery prose. Instead, the message needs to be meaningful to the message receiver and clear and concise so the receiver can easily interpret and understand the organization change. Evolutionary versus revolutionary change. Netflix has been a disruptive force in entertainment and technology. However, in the last few years, Netflix has found itself reacting to the environment rather than making the environment react to it. In response to slowing subscribership, increased costs, especially as they relate to content creation, and intense competition, Netflix has increased its prices, become a movie and television studio, and looked for ways to replace customer favorites like The Office and Star Wars as it continues to lose license rights to competitors. In short, Netflix has been experiencing evolutionary change. Evolutionary change is the type of change most companies experience. It is slow, incremental, and occurs with little or only short-sighted planning. However, even with all of that, as of today, Netflix is still the dominant player in streaming. As Netflix looks to the future, the question becomes, what should Netflix do to maintain its dominance in the industry? A strong argument can be made that, without revolutionary change, Netflix will lose its dominant position as the streaming industry becomes more horizontal and Netflix's services become more and more commodified as more and more companies offer similar streaming services. What is revolutionary change? If Netflix was content with just being another streaming platform, evolutionary change would be appropriate. Without revolutionary change, Netflix will continue to lose subscribers, market share, and burn through cash, what will keep profits slim and shareholders wary. However, Netflix's culture demands that they be a high-performing company, and to continue to dominate, they need a revolutionary change. Revolutionary change represents a major overhaul of the organization that results with a modified or entirely new mission, a change in strategy, leadership, or culture. To achieve such a change, Netflix would need to implement thoughtful planning, strong change agents in leadership roles, embrace flexibility, and prepare to persevere for the long term. Kotter's 8 stages of organizational change. One of the most popular and researched methods for implementing revolutionary change in an organization is John Kotter's 8-stage process. In his book, Leading Change, Kotter describes 8 stages of organizational change that organizations need to work through to successfully implement a revolutionary change. Number 1, establishing a sense of urgency. In this stage, Netflix would need to create an awareness of need for the change. This may be the most difficult of the stages for Netflix to embrace. The kind of success Netflix has experienced can create a sense of complacency. However, creating the necessary sense of urgency is essential to obtain the needed cooperation for organizational change. Number 2, creating the guiding coalition. Here, Netflix's leadership would need to form a change group and be empowered with enough authority to lead the change. This type of coalition would need to be created at multiple levels of the company. Number 3, developing a vision and strategy. The current vision and strategy would need to change. Netflix's current strategy is to continue its content production and enter various global markets. To date, that strategy has garnered success, but the market is changing with all of the new competition. Eventually, Netflix will need to completely change its vision and strategy to maintain its dominance. Number 4, communicating the change vision. Properly communicating the need for change, the change plan, and the progress of the change is an essential aspect of Kotter's 8-stage process. However, despite the importance of this stage, Kotter has found that management almost always underestimates the amount of communication needed to successfully lead change implementation. Netflix's culture of openness and its 360 evaluation and feedback tool should help it successfully communicate the change vision. Number 5, empowering employees for broad-based action. This stage involves removing obstacles to change, changing structures or systems that undermine the change vision, and encouraging innovative ideas. Similar to Stage 4, Netflix's culture of extreme openness, 360 tool, and their keeper test should allow Netflix to quickly remove resistant employees and quickly change structures as circumstances and the change plan require. Number 6, generating short-term wins. This relates to momentum. Momentum is often needed to fuel an organizational change, and achieving and communicating short-term wins helps keep momentum going in the right direction. Number 7, consolidating gains and producing more change. After an organization change has reached a point of maturity, the change leaders need to consolidate progress and evaluate the landscape to determine the best way to produce more change. Finally, number 8, anchoring new approaches in the culture. Finally, once the organizational change is near completion, leadership would need to take steps to anchor the changes in the organization. And those are Kotter's 8 stages of organizational change, which I think apply very well to Netflix. That concludes this presentation about organizational change and how it may impact and affect Netflix. Here are my references and the materials that I researched and studied to produce this presentation. Thank you for taking the time to listen and watch this. I hope it was helpful. Thank you.